I feel like I should be saying the evil and suffering argument is the worst argument against God's existence. However, there are other ones I believe to be far worse, so I can't even say that. In any case, the evil and suffering argument has two forms, the logical and evidential versions. The logical version tries to say it's logically incompatible for God to exist given the evil in the world, while the other argument, the evidential, says because of the evil in the world, we can inductively or even deductively conclude that God does not exist. It's a bit different, right? But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. They're trying to say, well, there's evil in the world, so God doesn't exist. And the main issue here is these are non sequiturs, right? Every single premise that states something like, well, if God existed, then evil wouldn't, which is what a lot of these premises are, begs the question, and commits the fallacy begging the question, on what basis? And by what standard are these things really evil? So we're first going to go over the standard of evil. Nothing is more amusing than an atheist who goes around saying, well, God is evil, God is this, kind of that. Like, by what standard? What standard is God evil? They can't provide an objective standard for the evilness of God. It's only a subjective standard, whether it's emotional, societally conditioned, this, that, and the third, but none of these standards are really objective. And even if we say these things are truly evil, how does that disprove God's existence? God could easily have a good reason for allowing all this suffering in the world. And this is where the begging the question comes in, because I'm going to give you an example here. All right, imagine a retarded kid. Not just an idiot, but mentally retarded, right? Now imagine a really smart man. Imagine the knowledge gap there. One's retarded, one's really smart, right? The retarded kid's not going to understand what the smart kid's doing or the smart man is doing, right? The smart man could be doing something perfectly, logically coherent, makes perfect sense, right? But the mentally retarded kid's just not going to get it because there's too much of a knowledge gap. They just don't understand the thought process. Now imagine that gap times 100, okay? Now imagine that gap times a theoretical infinite. That's the difference between the smartest man who has ever walked this earth, right? The smartest pure man that has ever walked this earth, and God. That's how big the difference is. So when you're making arguments saying, well, if God existed, then he would do this, you're begging the question, on what basis? How do you know? You're not in a position to say what an all-knowing, all-powerful, this, that, and the third being would do, or should do. It's like that mentally retarded kid trying to tell that smart man, you should run your business like this. It's like, well, you're retarded. Why should I listen to you? Like, imagine that. Yet, that same smart man, a lot of them are atheists. They go like, well, God, if you existed, you would do this. It's like, it's the same thing. You laugh at the retarded kid for giving you the advice because he's retarded. But God should laugh at you for trying to give the advice. Because the knowledge gap's even bigger than you and the retarded kid. Given all of this, and there's a few other things, but I don't want this video to be super long. I think those 2 points alone are enough. I must say, the evil and suffering argument is one of the worst arguments for God's existence, or against God's existence, rather.